Now, the 1980s was a magical era, and it was one that I was blessed to grow up in. So today I thought, why not celebrate a 1980s console with a 1980s movie? And that is The Terminator on the Sega Master System. Now, for full disclosure, although I haven't played this game myself, I'm not exactly going into it blind. I did watch the wonderful Tom over at Sega Head play this and thought to myself, can it really be as frustrating as he makes it out? Well, there's only one way to settle it, and that's to play it myself. Now, like all good 8-bit games, this one starts you off with a small introduction to the story, just in case you haven't seen the movie beforehand, and then leads you into this wonderful and quite atmospheric title sequence. And yes, it really does set the mood, and it sets this game up to be a game that you really want to play. But we're not here for the title sequence, as awesome as it might be. We're here to play the game, so let's just jump ahead to this part. And as is pretty much law in all 8-bit games, we have some more text letting us know what we're going to be doing in this first level that we're about to play, which of course will then lead to an early cutscene and we will get this game started proper. And as I said, this was pretty much a blind playthrough. I had watched Sega Head play it in the past, I'd just never played it myself, and to be honest with you, I don't even remember much about the gameplay. Well, except that it frustrated Tom to no end. Now, the first level that you face seems to be fairly simple. You have one enemy sprite on screen, this wonderful flying death device that is rapidly dropping bombs on you. And because I've already had a quick feel for what the controls are, I know I've got left, right, jump and a fire button. Now, the fire button just launches grenades in an arc, there is no rapid fire, and you can't fire while you're jumping. And as one has a want to do, I did try to take out the flying death machine. And then I tried to take out the flying death machine again, and again, and again, only to realise that what we were playing in this first part of the level wasn't in fact Terminator, but much more Running Man, because in this level what you have to do is just run. You start off at the left of the screen and you make your way all the way to the end where you'll be able to drop down into the base proper, and that is the only way to do this. A bit disappointing because I did want to blow up the flying death machine, but it wasn't to be. So now that the mad dash into the bunker is finally over, you would expect that this game was going to pick up a gear or two. Now, if by picking up a gear or two means to you throwing a myriad enemies and a constant stream of death at you, well, that's exactly what this game is about to do. And on top of that, you're still stuck with a one-shot arcing grenade. Now, of course, you can duck and throw a low grenade shot, but where the developers didn't skimp with Terminator was programming the AI. Now, this is quite apt since you're going up against some extremely advanced technology. Why the developers had to make the technology just as smart in this game, well, that's anyone's guess. Well, my guess is it's an 80s game and they had to make it balls hard so you couldn't complete it in under 10 minutes. So through this maze of platforms you have to find your way to pick up your weapons and pick up the explosives to take out this base. That, however, is no mean feat, because I'm employing no hyperbole whatsoever when I say to you that the enemy sprites know exactly what you're doing when you're doing it. Or at least that's how it seemed to me anyway. They come running at you, you lob a grenade, they fire their bullet, you duck. The second you duck, the second enemy that's just following behind the first enemy is also ducked and fired. Now add to this, of course, the frustration of the arcing weapon. It's not the straight shot that you would get in most run and gun games. So if you do get too close to the enemy sprite, it will just launch over his head. And that brings me to close quarters combat, because if you do unfortunately get stuck beside an enemy sprite, you're pretty much stuck with it until one of you die. Now Terminator on the Master System doesn't have a life system as such, it has a health bar. So while you can run into one or two of these enemies and just make it through by the skin of your teeth, eventually you're going to get stuck up against one of these guys and it's game over. And trust me when I say this is going to be game over several times as you play through this for your first couple of tries. Next niggle is the platforming, because the jumping is absolutely terrible. For some reason Kyle Reese decides to launch himself almost vertically before then moving in a parabolic glide. And of course some of these platforming sections require you to be pixel perfect. Now of course I didn't put a great deal of time into the game, maybe an hour or so. And after much trial and error I did manage to find a machine gun in a level. Now it didn't make a great deal of difference to my gameplay because probably I was so accustomed to the arcing grenade. Whether or not this would be a boon to my gameplay, well, I don't quite know yet because I haven't quite got used to it. But I'm sure the developers put it in there for a reason and made it worthwhile to find, especially considering the labyrinth of death that you had to negotiate your way through to get there in the first place. Now, would I recommend you to pick up and play Terminator on the Master System these days? Well, only with some very specific caveats. Firstly, you would need to be a fan of the Master System if you wanted to play this game, or at the very least a fan of 8-bit games, because let's face it, back in the 8-bit days they didn't make games easy. 2, if you're a big fan of the Terminator franchise itself, then definitely have this in your collection and give it a shot. Or 3, if you're just a masochist and you love really hard games that are licensed games that don't tend to be terribly good to start with, but the pain of these experiences bring you joy, then more power to you, and definitely go and experience this game because it is torturous and you'll probably get something out of it. Now I will definitely go back and play more of this game, and not just because I'm a masochist, but also because I love the Terminator franchise and I love licensed games, and I grew up with 8-bit games, so I have a bit of patience and perseverance when it comes to these titles. But now of course I'd like to hear from you. Was this a game that you played back in the day? Is this the first time that you've ever experienced the Terminator on the Master System? Are you now interested enough to go and buy a copy of this game for yourself, or do you want to see every last copy fired into the sun and forgotten forever? Well, if you want to answer any of these questions, then drop down into the comments, because the interaction between you and me, well, that's what makes YouTube special. It does for me anyway. If you're new to the channel and would like to see more from Generation Pixel, I will pop up some boxes here for you to click on so you can explore some more of my videos at your leisure. But as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, cheerio!